input of central government must be entrenched so that you have to make sure that these deliveries are satisfactory, which means a monitoring mechanism. So I think the point you made is government really has to, in a sense, develop a new paradigm of, let us say, the expectations to ensure that everyone gets the security that you mention in the various respects, but work out the implementation mechanism to allow maximum people's participation, as was mentioned, in the areas which affect their day-to-day life. I think that's something we really need to revisit when we're discussing better delivery, which I hope will be one of the main subjects of the Parliamentary Select Committee that is planned.
Just add something to it. In order to possess national security, this is an entry from the entry in the internet. In order to possess national security, a nation needs to possess economic security, energy security, environmental security, among others. Security threats involve not only conventional force such as other nation states, but also non-state actors such as violent non-state actors. So I think that's the very broad understanding of what national security is all about.
And I would like to add a little bit. As far as education security is concerned, now politicized education is the biggest problem, because now people are using the university system to do their politics. And protecting them, that threat also part of the education security, because when you analyze this problem today we are facing, actually sometimes higher education should give a new vision to the students. So we are giving the traditional knowledge, but we are not giving them a long-term vision for the students, but someone else coming and giving a wrong vision, and they are going behind them. So that is the biggest challenge, biggest threat we are facing. At the same time, I should praise KDU. It's a new model, hybrid model and new model. You are developing all discipline graduates with all these skills and other thinking and all. So that is the model we want. It is not free of charge also to all. So people who can pay and come. So these are the new models we have to introduce, but it's not that easy to introduce all these things. In a nutshell, now market is asking for CDs, or the compact disc, but still our higher education system is producing gramophone disc. It's based on analog. So we have to break the machine and convert it into the digital machine.
Any more? I'm sure we have distinguished visitors from India. They're very silent, conspicuously silent.
Chairman, may I?
Yes.
May I also add my tuppence worth of wisdom, because I'm left out. He mentioned the word cultural security. Well, if you are interpreting security in the broader sense, you can think of a cultural security where you feel secure in culture. You feel at home in culture. Now we in Sri Lanka, we have a beautiful, colorful island culture, which is an amalgam of many subcultures. In fact, we say Sri Lankan culture, but within that is a blend of many subcultures. The Sinhala Buddhist subculture, the Sinhala Christian subculture, the Hindu, Tamil Hindu subculture, Tamil Christian and Muslim culture, many. So that adds to our beauty of the island culture. So if you feel at home in any of these cultures, to do that you must be able to appreciate not only what is similar, but what is different. Now we have so many colorful festivals happening here. So you should not we do it one way, the Hindus do another way, Christian a third way. That doesn't matter. You must be able to appreciate that each has a meaning. Not only my culture, every culture has a meaning. So don't question they are doing it that way. So I think what we can do to feel at home in culture is to appreciate what is beautiful in all subcultures.
We have 25 statutory holidays in Sri Lanka. 25. Of the 25, the majority are either cultural or religious, belonging to all four religions. Yes, Colonel.
I do not know. I have been teaching in IIM as a visiting professor. analysis and communication. I have been on interviewing panels also. One remarkable thing I noticed, I don't know whether it is here, probably it will be similar, because this trait, the modern student, he doesn't question what you call, he cannot carry out analysis on his own. Previously in our generation, I'm an old guy, so it might be, may not be relevant now, but we used to question. This, I think the Brigadier raised the question of ideology. I think unless that teachers are able to create that attitude, I think this conformist trend people should move from that. That is where I appreciated Professor Jayaratna's presentation. This is exactly what he is suggesting. And I have also in analysis and communication, I have tried to bring this aspect by giving relevant on-the-ground examples. Unless we do that, the students think that studying history has no relevance now. That's why humanities is practically being abandoned, which I think is a very sad thing, because it gives the background for analytical thinking in other aspects. This is my observation only. I don't know, since they're all professional educationists, I won't want to trespass in it. This is only an observation.
Just to maybe start the ball rolling, here are very distinguished academics, as you said. But my understanding of this whole thing is that our systems have been rather teach-oriented than student-oriented, right from grade 1 into the universities. Maybe it's cultural also to a certain extent. To ask a question from a teacher, we believe it's an insult. This is what has been inculcated into our heads. Also, I must say there have been deliberate inculcation to a certain extent to say that don't ask bloody questions, just listen to what I say, is another paradigm that we have had. But there have been I must say deviations from this. For instance, when the Postgraduate Institute of Management was established, and I joined as a senior consultant, hadn't done any teaching at all, my first briefing by the director was that you have a 3-hour lecture, make sure you don't talk for more than 20 minutes, which meant it's student oriented. So you just go and generate a little bit of thinking, 20 minutes, the rest of it is you are learning from them. And I found it to be extremely provocative, enlightening. At the end of the day, you have learnt a lot. Well, I really miss that part of the work. Here are people who can comment on that. Can I ask Professor Ranasinghe, who was a colleague of mine, a great educationist in this country on management education? I'm sure you can comment on that.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The relationship between the teacher and the student is an important thing. You know, if there is I think there is some amount of cultural influence of cultural factor, because there is a certain power distance between the teacher and the student according to our traditional culture. But still, I think the teachers, though there is this power distance, the teacher, it doesn't mean that the teacher would like the student to just to receive what he says and accumulate it and store it in himself and then go back and repeat. This traditional, that model has been there, but then now it is changing, I think, as a result of exposure to the technology, especially after the internet revolution came in. Students they try to learn on their own quite a lot, and they come back and they try to do their assignments, and sometimes it depends. Some new generation of teachers have this tendency of promoting questions, promoting discussion in the class, and it depends on what kind of model that you use for education. Is it more the participatory type where you bring in, or adult education oriented model, or the it is called pedagogy andragogy debate, you know. So traditionally we had the teacher dominance, but now I think we are also substituting more andragogic approaches where the student is supposed to learn on by himself. So self-learning is promoted. And we are also substituting distance learning modes, things like that. And university system, of course, cannot cater to all. And we have this limitation, and as a result, there are some, definitely a problem in our society. The demand for higher education is so much, but the universities can take in only about 20% at the moment, depending on the limited capacity. So therefore, we are looking at various alternatives, which Secretary Education was talking about, Chairman himself was talking about. So the alternatives for what is there today. So these alternatives will have to be very innovative. There can't be traditional kind of alternatives as such. There has to be more out of the box type thinking to bring in such innovative approaches to education, especially higher education. So I think what happens here is that there is a lot of dominance of the state model, the state-sponsored model in this our situation. I'm not saying that it should be discouraged, but at the same time, I think, as Honorable Rajiv Jayasinghe said, there has to be more independence allowed for people to learn. So that means even do new experiments in teaching and learning process. We should not look at the whole thing as only a teaching process, but it's a more of a teaching and learning which takes place at the same time. So that is where we need more innovative, I suppose, we have to be away from this technical, vertical thinking, but substitute more of more flexible, radical thinking. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, let me add a little bit to Professor Siddharthas. Exactly what you said was correct, because now today still teacher come to in front of the class and he deliver a lecture and student write and rewrite in the exam. So how can we improve those skills? Okay, I will give you one example I used to teach strategic management in a university. It was a 15-week course, so I gave them all one textbook. It's American, right? Now, using American model or theory is not practical for us. So what we have to do, I never teach. I tell them, okay, use this textbook and be prepared for chapter 1. There were 130 students in that class, and there were 13 teams, 10 into 13 teams, right? Each team. Then they have to have a president, managing director, marketing manager, all these things. And they should run like a company. So they should come and do the presentation. They should prepare for the first chapter, right? Then I am not a teacher, I am only a mentor. I tell, okay, randomly I select, okay, you come and do the presentation in front of the class. So all the students are given marks for that, and they should come and do the presentation in front of the class. So they have to read the book first, they have to summarize, and do the presentation in front of the class. So we learn when we try to teach. So allow student to teach. Then he himself read and go to the various websites and find a lot of presentation models, and in front of the class like this, and they have to come and present. All the skills will be improved. And finally, on the third week, they should develop a plan which can be delivered practically on 15th week. So each team should develop. I will tell you one good example. One team delivered 150,000 rupees worth of bus salt in front of Rajagiri, a food city. Still you can see under the name of NIBM. And they collected money and they developed it and delivered. That's a part of the this thing, practical. And to take that decision, so they have to argue, they have to fight, and that is teamwork. That is decision making and implementation. So this is how we have to change the teaching. So but still, most of the universities are using this